Thank you, Kevin. You gave us a lot to chew on. Understanding the importance of Maslow's hierarchy of need in order for our children to feel included, safe, seen, empowered, and loved was especially powerful to me. And it leads right into the words vulnerability and trust, of which I will be addressing. Hello, I'm Kim Bartling. It is an absolute honor to welcome you to a life choice that you will never regret, a profession that is deeply personal, work that is ephemeral, and that not one moment or day can be repeated, so it will never be dull. Classrooms that rely on your open arms and heart as much as your open mind, as brilliant and creative as it is. And children that will teach you who you really are. My first teaching contract included sophomore through senior English, advanced speech, the one-act play, the all-school musical, the oral interp team, the junior-senior prom advisor, and the cheerleading coach. I thought I was applying to be the basketball, cross-country, or track coach. But I signed that first contract for $17,800 in Arlington, South Dakota, and I never looked back. It was the beginning of a truly wonderful life in education. As a lifelong educator, I know teachers come to conferences like this, even via Zoom, thinking, enough already. Let me just get into that classroom, put up a few bulletin boards, and start knocking out those lesson plans. And then there are some of you who are looking for the key to the Rosetta Stone, that secret to discipline, classroom management, and maybe even some creative exercises that you can download to get you through the first week. Well, you are in luck, as my colleagues and I represent the Humanity Launch, where we provide you with a tangible working platform while igniting your passion, which will launch you to establishing a successful culture in your classroom, in your school, and in your life. So today, I'm going to combine two researchers to offer some ideas that can diffuse complex moments, provide emotional insight, and create a stable, working, and empowering culture. Dr. Brene Brown is a research professor at the University of Houston who has spent 2 decades studying courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy. Dr. Gary Chapman is a pastor and missionary, most noted for his concept of the 5 love languages. I have discovered that combining these two humanitarians and academics creates a solid landing pad where positive culture can begin. So let's go. According to Chapman, each of us has our own specific love language. That is, the emotional language of which we respond. They are touch, gifts, service, quality time, words of affirmation. First of all, it's imperative to know what your love language is, because of course they change according to each person. I joke that this is a conversation that my husband and I should have had in our premarital counseling over 34 years ago. So instead of coming to an agreement over toothpaste squeezing techniques or the closing of toilet seats, my husband, I found out over the years, is an affirmation and touch guy. I'm a service girl. So he wants to be told he's handsome and hold his hand. I want him to clean the garage. Somehow we make it work. So how does this work for the classroom? In order for there to be productive culture, the students must feel seen. I mean really seen. Recognizing a student's love language helps them to lean into their vulnerability, and it allows you to expedite and solidify trust. So let's talk a little bit about vulnerability. As adults, when we are establishing relationships, we gravitate to those who are being transparent with us. But being transparent and vulnerable is the last thing we typically want to show others. The truth is, according to Brené Brown's research, that vulnerability is the birthplace of trust, joy, creativity, belonging, love, and leadership. So as you enter the arena of academia, armor up with your ability to show vulnerability. It will result in establishing a stimulating, engaging, safe place for your students. Today, I'm combining Brown and Dr. Chapman's love language as an option to connect with your students. Dr. Brown talks about using braving when creating trust. Braving is an acronym for boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. Now, I'm not going to dive into this well of Brown's insight today, but just know that if you are brave enough to tap into a child's love language, trust will fuel rocketing relationships, especially for that challenging and reluctant student. First love language, touch. The worst advice I ever got was my first year at a new school. It was my 5th year of teaching. And one day after school, another teacher came into my classroom. I really admired this teacher, as he and his classes seemed adventurous and even cool. So he came in and he said to me, "You must stop hugging students. You are going to find yourself in a lawsuit." And he left. That was it. I was expecting a friendship or maybe at the least a conversation. Instead, he took a hold of my sense of authority and belonging, and he wrung the life out of it. I was devastated. I felt attacked. I felt misunderstood. I felt shame. He had me questioning myself and my teaching and even my self-worth. My hard-nosed, blue-collar plumber of a father overheard me lamenting about this episode with my mother that weekend, and he offered this rich piece of wisdom. Why do you care? He's not nearly as important as he thinks he is. So Brené Brown would say that fellow teacher is in the cheap seats. Had Brown been there, she, along with my dad, would have reminded me that when I'm getting dirty in the arena of vulnerability, say like, a classroom, I must filter the voices in the crowd. Brown reminds us that to demonstrate courage, we might have to touch the shoulder of a student to gauge for understanding or encourage directed focus. We battle for trust by offering a hug to a student who is clearly asking for one. And if you are doing this, my friends, you are in the arena. But if you're in the cheap seats and not nearly as important as you think you are, I'm not interested in your feedback. So, I returned to school that Monday. I walked into his classroom and said, I can't think of one thing of which I could be more proud than to have my name on the front of the Argus Leader for being found guilty of hugging a child. I'm sorry you do not see the value in hugs, but I and some of my students really need them. David J. Linden, a neuroscience professor at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, states, "It's not so much that touch is a useful tool for teaching facts and strategies. It's not as if you touch a student's arm as they practice algebra, then they will learn algebra better. More than anything else, what touch conveys is, I'm an ally. I'm not a threat. And that makes learning better. Next love language, gifts. I use words as gifts. Handwritten notes, even a sentence left on a student's desk can be a game changer. 5 years ago, I was in an 8th grade class and I observed one boy who was clearly creating anything but a positive working culture in that classroom. When school dismissed, I handed him a note that simply read, "Cameron, you are obviously a skilled communicator as you talk a lot. I believe you have what it takes to be a leader in this classroom." As his teacher kept me informed on his progress, I continued to write Cameron very specific notes throughout the year, citing his ability and his potential. Last year, when he graduated high school, I went to his home for the celebration. And he brought out the notes that I had written. They were stored carefully in an Air Jordan box. Folks, they took seconds to write, little tangible pieces of self-fulfilling prophecy. Never underestimate the power of a new pencil, a piece of candy, or a note. Next, service. I used to tease students about the myth of teachers' pets because really, it's not a myth at all. I am totally equal opportunity teacher's pet. I mean, anybody can be one. Just show up. Be the student who volunteers. Be the student who thinks outside the box and proposes a community project to whatever we're studying at that moment. Be the student who listens. Be the student who befriends the least of them. And you must be the teacher who does the same for them. I mean, this is the epitome of demonstrating mastery. Show them what it looks like to be the human in humanity. That connection is service. Quality time. I find quality time and service go hand in hand, but it's up to you as a teacher to research your students. I mean, show up for their art shows, their choir concerts, their athletic games, their theater productions, any one of the 100 things of which a student is passionate. And then stay till the end and respond to it. Maybe that student doesn't do anything inside the school walls other than class. So stop by the work. Ask them to recommend a book or introduce you to a new musical artist. Elementary teachers, this is why you are so blatantly loved by your students. I mean, it's because students, they equate time that is high in quality with acceptance, growth, trust, and love. Next, words of affirmation. And for some of us, this is hard. Like I said, it's not what drives me, so I have to be deliberate in applying it. And really, it is easy. Hey, Jaden, thanks for being such a good listener in class today. Tyler, your positive energy is something this class really plugs into. Thanks for bringing it every day. Sydney, your work on that assignment, it was so good. In fact, I found myself talking about it to my family last night. Thank you for putting so much work into it. And even though a sense of humor is a must in the classroom, be careful of using sarcasm where it can be misinterpreted. Kevin shared the hard reality of so many of our students. And so you need to be sensitive to things of which, frankly, you may not know the whole story. So instead of greeting that chronically absent student with, "Well, thank you, Miss Larson, for gracing us with your presence today," try, "Hey, Cora, I'm really glad you're here today." Finding the time to recognize one's efforts translates to I see you. Brene Brown defines leadership as anyone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in people and then has the courage to help the people develop the potential. So many of us have grown up with that Midwest work ethic of put your nose to the grindstone and get her done. I have no doubt each of you has worked diligently to this point. But now I would encourage you to lift up that nose and face and see the people and the potential around you. Really see your students. Identify their love languages and be the leader and the teacher you were born to be. Thank you and good luck.